Welcome to the SharpRank Pro Interview series. Each week we will highlight a Sharp listed on our site and cover topics at the intersection of sports and gambling.
This week we welcome Thor from Rotoworld. Let's do this.
All right, we are live. We are joined here by Thor from Rotoworld. This is the SharpRank Pro Interview series, and there are a lot of interested fans here to hear from you, Thor. So welcome in. Thanks for spending some time with us and coming to us live from Minneapolis, correct?
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Good to be here.
Yeah, it should be fun. So why don't we kind of kick it off a little bit and get to know you a little bit. Give us like a really tall building elevator pitch of where you got to and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, sure. I came up wanting to do sports journalism, so I went to Kansas, in journalism school, sports journalism, et cetera. And then out of there, I did an internship with MLB.com. And that was sort of how I got my foot in the door with NBC, started out part-time baseball. And I ended up going to grad school and teaching a year in China. And I kept doing the Rotoworld job through all that, 4 years of that, and then came back to the States. And at that point, they switched me to the college football NFL draft section, which was my first love. College football and the NFL draft specifically are two things that I've been obsessed with since I was a little kid. So once that happened, everything sort of ramped up from there.
That's really cool. Yeah. What were you teaching over in China?
I taught English, I taught creative writing, and I taught a Western culture course, which is kind of bullshit, to be honest with you. I just showed them movies, basically. But
so the American education system is alive and well.
Yeah, well, I feel like my other classes were solid, but I mean, like, I was given no instruction for teaching a Western culture class. It's like, well, I'll show you some culture.
Yeah, roll in the TV. So it's interesting. We've talked to a couple folks on here. One in particular, Case Kiefer, who writes for the Las Vegas Sun.
I went to college with Case Kiefer.
Yeah. And suddenly, for some of us outsiders, we had no idea that Kansas was such a pipeline. Like, it's always been in my head a basketball school, but you guys are pumping out sports journalists like it's nobody's business.
Yeah, one of my best friends is a lead college basketball writer for The Athletic as well. We got a bunch of them. Another guy we went to school with was a Redskins beat reporter for a while. I'm not sure what he's doing now. Rustin Dodd was a Royals beat reporter for a while. Mark Dent was working for Dallas Morning News and the Indy Star. Like, we got people everywhere.
It's crazy. It's wild to think about. I would have never, I guess I just didn't really think about it too much, but you guys are really, really pumping out talent.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that, I mean, a part of it I think is like the school is pretty solid, as far as journalism goes. And then, specifically to the sports thing, just speaking for myself, I was from northern Minnesota. I'm from Brainerd, so I'm from 10 hours away from Kansas, but I wanted to go to a school that had good sports programs because I was going into sports journalism. So in that way, it was sort of a self-selecting thing. The basketball program sort of attracted me there. I'm not sure if that's the same with, some of these other guys that went into sports journalism and ended up there, but that could be part of it because I just didn't want to go to a D2 or a D3 school. Like, I wanted to cover big time athletics where my work could potentially be read by people outside my school while I was there.
Yeah, definitely. I've long since said, and we're, my wife and I are expecting our first kid in a month.
Congratulations.
Thanks. But I've long said that, like, it was never told to me that, like, you could get a college education at, like, Georgia, like, and have that experience too. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it was like, that was never made apparent to me. And so when we start looking at colleges for this little guy, I'm going to be like, go to a big program school. Like, and you'll get a great education, but you'll also get something that, like, just other people won't be able to understand. Like, you had Kansas basketball, you had all sorts of sports in front of you. And
I know you weren't going to say football because you're embarrassed by our football program, but we actually won the Orange Bowl while I was on campus. My senior year, I'll have you know, over Virginia Tech, Aqib Talib repping the house, Todd Reesing, Mark Mangino, the man genius. Like, that team was legit. It wasn't until I left that the program cratered again. basically during my 4 years, actually technically it was 5. I did take the victory lap, but during my 5 years, Kansas football was at its highest point ever, and then it just promptly fell off the table right when I left.
Case made the same reference to the Orange Bowl that you just did, and I said, yeah. I said, it's kind of interesting. You could make the assumption that you are better for Kansas football than Les Miles. Okay?
I don't think there's any doubt about that. There's no question about that. Les Miles has been more detrimental to Kansas football than just about anyone this side of Charlie Weiss. We'll see the totality of Les Miles' destruction by the time he's finally fired. It's not going to be by his buddy Jeff Long, because they're golf friends. So first we're going to have to get rid of Jeff Long, the man that hired him, and then we can get rid of Les. But by that point, we'll see. We'll have to compare it. If he or Charlie Weiss ruin the program and put it back further, it's going to be interesting to measure, though, because Weiss put us back about a decade, and Les Miles is certainly on that trajectory.
He's doing his darndest.
He's trying. He's trying real hard. The team's getting worse and worse and worse, which is showing well for him. It's basically exactly the Charlie Weiss trajectory. So we'll see how it goes.
Gosh, it's so hard. And both those guys were the product of really successful programs at Notre Dame and LSU. And then it just goes to show you that, like, if you can't recruit and you can't coach, you got to be able to do one or the other. You can't just not do.
And they were in places where the recruiting was done for them, essentially, right. And Weiss is a good play caller, but if you don't have the players, that doesn't matter. He couldn't recruit to Kansas. And the reason I hated the Les Miles' hire is because he wasn't gonna be able to recruit to Kansas either. Yep. No one's ever gonna be able to recruit to Kansas. You're never gonna be in the top 3, top 4. You're never even gonna be in the top 5 of the Big 12 recruiting rankings out of 10. It's never going to happen. So the way you got to do it is like, Iowa State with Campbell. That's sort of the conventional way, finding a young guy who thinks sort of outside the box and can, find like the under recruited guys and then sort of build them up. I mean, he's not young and he's not handsome either, but Mark Mangino was sort of like that for us before. That it's either that route or else you go triple option, and which is my other preferred. It is my preferred route. Monken. Niamala. I've been covering the sport for a decade. The
Navy coach.
Yeah, the Navy coach. Niamatalolo. I think I got it. Troy Calhoun, like, someone of that ilk. Willie Fritz, a variant of it. But anyway, you got to go one way or the other. And instead they picked a guy who recruited off a brand and was stuck 20 years behind schematically, even when he got fired from LSU.
Yeah.
It was just a terrible decision.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a splash move for just for the sake of a splash. It felt like there was no real like game plan behind it. And I think maybe Kansas was like, well, I'm sure he has a game plan. And Les Miles is like, I don't have a game plan. I thought you guys had a game plan. So
I really think it was just an old boy thing. Like Jeff Long is friends with Les Miles. I think he had decided on Les Miles probably before he even fired the previous coach. It's just, who knows? They might have even been hanging out the previous summer, and Jeff Long brings it up or whatever, a telephone call. There was not a national search there. They may have put the guise of one up, but that was Les Miles' job from the second. Well, again, from before the second they fired David Beatty, and just a ludicrously bad decision. But I don't think Jeff Long makes decisions that's a guy who's in over his head in the job he's in. In fact, I'll tell you a funny anecdote. One of my, I heard this, a sports reporter went up to Long. This was right before the hire, and Long asked him if he had any thoughts on the coaching hire. And the guy said, well, no, but he said, I have a buddy, Thor, who has been a Long advocate that Kansas should hire a triple option coach. And Long sort of laughed and he goes, yeah, I understand that, but it would be brutal to watch. So we're not going to do that. And of course he hires Les Miles, and it's like, you want to know what's more brutal to watch, Jeff? It's watching teams that win between 0 and 1 game every effing year with no hope, just absolutely no hope going forward, no direction, no hope, no upward trajectory, just getting absolutely flash dominated by any team with a pulse. from Coastal Carolina on up to Baylor, to Kansas State, to Texas Tech, all the way on up to the Texas and the Oklahomas. It's really frustrating. But this is why I'm one of the last remaining 30 Kansas football fans. Like, the rest of them can't stay emotionally invested anymore. I'm just going to drive myself insane one of these years. You'll have to put me in the asylum. I'll be scratching at the walls like Charlie Weiss, Les Miles, pulling my hair out,
Yeah. And so for future audiences, this was the moment that Thor snapped. This was it. This is the last remaining footage.
Is this my behind the music episode?
yeah. This is your Kurt Cobain last interview. All right. So a lot of people on our site follow you on and check your stuff out on social media and on Rotoworld. Give us something that people might be surprised to know about you that they can't find on social media.
Oh man. I probably put more than I should on social media. So I'm not sure what else there is to know about me. I'm a man of very simple taste, to be honest with you. I like watching college football. I like playing the NCAA football game on PS3. Anyone that follows me knows that. I guess I occasionally hang out with my family and friends, and I occasionally date, but I really, really do like college football and playing that stupid game, which I've been playing now for a decade plus, and that's my life,
Are you running the triple option?
No, I don't know why, but I guess, probably just because early on, I've been playing that game at this point now for 15 years. I mean, the incarnation of the game that we have is 14, which came out in 13. So I guess I've been playing that one for 7, but the other ones I played going way, way back to when I was in, middle school or whenever they started or whatever. But I think it was just the spread stuff, it probably just because it more viscerally appeals to you. It's just the stuff that I've figured out better. So I'll run just a little bit out of spread, but it's a lot of different passing concepts, screwing around with that, and then finding different ways, different playbooks, get guys open. So I have all these different custom playbooks, and take stuff from the air raid, take stuff from the the run and gun, take stuff from just every sort of different thing. But the triple option, for whatever reason, I've just never been able to be the best at it, because you have to have that hair trigger timing on it, right when the dude's about to hit you, you got to be able to pitch.
Yeah.
And if you make a mistake, it's a fumble, so that's what impresses me so much about the Service Academy. Some people don't like to watch it. I love to watch it, because I don't think people understand the crazy timing it takes. And the quarterback's got to read, these certain guys, and then the unmarked guy, and then he's got to decide whether he's going to pitch, whether he's going to cut it up the field. And it's got to be done like that. And the pitch has got to be perfect, and the whole thing's just got to go seamless, Yep.
That's actually a really good transition here, because we're going to get into the main event, gambling, what the people want to hear. But to your point about the service academies and the triple option, when Navy got blown out first game of the season by BYU, I told people just relax, because the option is timing and execution, and you can't replicate that through chalk, and so it's repetitions, and you started to see as they got those repetitions under their belt, they became a little more efficient and a little more, they have quarterback problems, but that type of stuff, and something we talk about all the time on our site is the market overreaction to something like that. I don't think a lot of people knew that Zach Wilson was going to be who Zach Wilson is, but still, you saw a market overreaction with that huge loss. So when you're picking games, I know you have your own methodology, your own, I guess you could, it's a model, it's a handicap, and what are you looking for, and what goes into that?
So I start the week by getting my numbers in order. So I'll start it by getting my adjusted number on every single game, and then I'm comparing that against the opening lines, and then from there, it's just sort of going through every game quick, noting the discrepancy, and then trying to explain it to myself just quickly, and then sometimes, you'll look a bit more into something, because sometimes there will be an enormous discrepancy on something where there doesn't appear to be the injuries or COVID opt-outs perhaps to support a discrepancy like that. And so, sometimes you're thinking, is this, is the public too high on a team? Is the public too low on a team? Your example of, the overreaction, stuff like that. So, that's sort of how I start the week. And then I attempt to sort of isolate the card down to, the 25 or so games that I'm most interested in, basically just whittle it down through that process. And then that's what I do the hard handicaps on. And then I whittle that basically down to 10, 11, 12, which is usually the amount of games that I write up and that I play myself.
Yeah. And is that, as you're whittling down, are you basing that, like once you've created your adjusted numbers, are you whittling it down based on variance in the spread that you see, or just sort of what we've kind of coined as an educated gut?
I would say a lot of the former, just because the rest of it, like where I'm going to come in, like I can't affect the adjusted line thing any. That is totally the numbers. That's outside of my hands. Where I come in is after that process. And so I figure that if something's going to be sort of whittling it down in mass, it should be that, because it's a quantifiable thing that is not me. One thing in sports betting, I think a lot of people make a mistake, which is why the public always loses. They're not aware of their own biases when they're betting and when they're, handicapping, if they do handicap. And for better or worse, I do try to be aware of my own biases, and that's getting the adjusted spread number is one thing I can do to both counteract my own biases, but also to sort of just give me like a stake in the ground, with regards to a specific game of like, all things else equal in a vacuum, this is about what the line ought to be. And then after that, it's explaining to myself, why is the line not that? And if it's not that because of perceptual reasons, things that don't have to do with reality, which is possible in a world where the public informs the lines. The sports books only just sort of set them out at the beginning, the offshore ones, but the public is the one that really, is setting those lines or whatever. That's how you can get these discrepancies between what is reality and, what is sort of perception. And I think that's where you get the pregame value.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I think it's magnified in college. Why college, right? I know you love watching college football, but from a gambling perspective, we kind of have a theory that, look, when you bet spreads, there's two things you need to know. You need to know who wins and by how much. And in college, if you see a spread of 40, minus 40, you kind of eliminate one of those variables. You know what I'm saying? And with the NFL, the Jets beat the Browns. You just have no idea. Any given Sunday, it can be any team. Is that what goes into it, or is it just kind of your love for college football in general?
Well, it would be my love of college football in general. I mean, that's, to do this, to handicap that many games or come up with a number for that many games every single week, you have to have a certain sickness. You just have to be sort of a sicko to actually care what, the line of like UL Monroe against Texas State is, and actually care what the outcome is. You actually have to be a sick person. I've watched those games on like, my iPad on ESPN3, like where it's all, you can barely see the cameras like way up in the, like the Kibbe Dome games, like back in the day when Idaho was in the FBS, like betting on those games, it's tremendous. And I don't know, I got that sickness. As far as the other stuff, I sort of see it slightly differently, which is, I think there's more outcome variance in college football, which I think presents the opportunity for more value, as well as the betting public is not as privy to the minutia going around these teams and these programs as they are in the NFL. Yep. Like I make the joke to my friends and family sometimes that like, NFL writers have the easiest job in the world because they cover 32 teams. I know every single one of those guys. And heck, most of the public knows a lot of those guys. Even casual fans could list just about dang near every single person on the active roster of a team. There's no way a casual Minnesota Gopher fan could list even 7 players on that team. And the rosters turn over so quickly. It's so much harder to cover the entire landscape of college football with 130 teams in the FBS. And so, I think, if you're basically trying to get an information edge, on the book, but more so, again, it's against the general public, because that's essentially who you're betting against. And so I find that I can sort of leverage my knowledge advantage or my information edge or whatever more effectively in college football, just because I cover that extremely closely year round, and it's very, very difficult for other people to be able to do the same.
Got it. So your value is, of course, you're looking at the lines early, right? And before the public mangles it, but your value is really the information edge that you have. It not your only value, but that's really where you see it, is that you have more of an advantage against the general public in college than you do in the NFL, because 1, you're a nutcase and all you do is watch college football, but 2, not everyone, but most people who watch the NFL, the gap shortens. Is that accurate?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, any Joe Schmo fan could give you a general idea about any of the 32 NFL teams. They could give you a 5-minute soliloquy about their opinion on the Houston Texans or the Cleveland Browns or the San Francisco 49ers. There's no way they could do the same for even 3 college football teams. They could name the coach. They might be able to name 1 player, but it's just a whole different ballgame. And so a lot of times the general public is just sort of betting the uniforms. And you have sharps that are sort of keeping some of those numbers in line, but you do get numbers that get, out of whack because of some of these different things. People just betting based on the records or just based on their alma mater or whatever, which is something that you don't see as much of in the NFL.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with that. That's really interesting. So picking games, you've always been interested in college football. Picking games, did that come about just by way of the medium and the outlet that you have, or was that something that, like, in college you were doing and in high school you were doing, or did that come about because, like, hey, I'm covering the draft and they want me to do some betting stuff too?
No, I've always liked to gamble, I guess. I was running a fantasy baseball league in 6th grade. This was before like internet track stuff. Yeah. So, and I'm 36. So I don't even know how many years ago this was. But anyway, the way that I did it was I got my dad to give me a subscription to Baseball Weekly, and I would accrue our league stats every single week using the Baseball Weekly. And to do a lineup change, they'd have to call me, or to do a free agent, they'd have to call me, or, whatever. I've always liked doing the fantasy stuff. I've always liked, betting on games or, predicting games, like whatever. And so actually, like, 5 or 6 years ago, whenever it was that I started, I actually had to sort of bang the table at NBC to allow me to write that column. It was something that I'd wanted to do for a little bit. And I felt like there was, an appetite for it in the market, especially, for a website like ours. There's some good gambling content out there. A lot of it you have to pay for. At that time, there wasn't a lot of good free stuff. Even the ESPN stuff, a lot of it's hidden behind a paywall. Mm-hmm. And so, I just felt like, it'd be cool to do that. And I handicap the games anyways, because I've been betting on them since I was a freshman in college. Yeah. In fact, I got a funny story. When I went to college, I wanted to start betting. And so I got money on a site. I figured out how to do that. But like, I didn't know what I was doing as far as, anything like, point spread, nothing like, I'd never been to a, like a casino, like in a sports book, nothing like that. And so I actually paid for like one of those tout services, like, something like $100 or $75, whatever. And I called in one time and he said, do a 2-team parlay on, it was like one game, and he's like, take this team and then take like the over. And he's like, it's a lock, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. And so I bet it, and they both lost. And and I called back in the next time, and they said something like there was some sort of guarantee. And so I got the guy on the phone the next time, and I was like, yeah, you know, I lost last time. There was something about a guarantee. The guy actually snapped at me and hung up the phone. And I never called back. It was a great lesson for me of at least I don't know if I just picked the wrong one or whatever, but you know, after that, I was really motivated to try to figure out how on my own to try to predict these games. And so I started, like, you know, with the Phil Steele and stuff like that. And, you know, with his magazine, you can write down all the little results. And this is before Rotoworld, but I would pick every single game against the spread. And then I would track, you know, with different teams, how I was picking, you know, with them, you know, whether, if it mattered, whether they were home or away, why, you know, whatever. And so, you know, that's sort of how I started, I guess. But I've always loved to do it, man. It's just, it's fun. I mean, it's a great way to, even if you don't win, as long as you're not losing, like, you know, too much or whatever. I just see it as like, it's like going to the movie. You're spending, like, you know, $30 going to the movie. Like, if you got $30 to do that, why not throw it on, you know, Clemson, Ohio State, and make that game 20 times more fun, even if you're not a gambler. You know, it's just, to me, it just makes the whole experience more fun. But again, I got a sickness.
we actually, that's funny you say that, because like our idea at SharpRank actually stemmed from one of my really good friends and I were driving back from the beach about a year ago. We were listening to sports radio on a Sunday morning, and this guy, like, you know, Johnny Two Stacks or whatever, was on some infomercial, and he was like, I'm 901 against the spread, you know, and like never lost, call in. So we did the same thing. We're like, this is great, right? Like, but this is free money. So like we called in, we got the pick similar to you. We placed the pick. Lose immediately, right? Like, it wasn't even close. And so we start thinking, like, wait a minute, nobody's like fact checking these guys. Like, there's no transparency into this market. It's just like a lot of snake oil salesmen saying, like, hey, trust me, give me your money. And everyone's like, yeah, all right, yeah, this guy seems legit. So like, that was kind of part of the impetus for starting this thing. It also helps, like, we think, and our team is big fans of just gambling in general. So there are a ton of personalities out there, like yourself, like Case, you know, all these different folks that, like, I think are just names to a lot of people. And we wanted to kind of put some personality behind it. You can speak to this better probably, is that, when you get into this is a long-term commitment, and having one down week shouldn't deter you, because part of what we do at SharpRank is, like, accuracy is important, of course, but longevity, consistency, which side of the consensus you're on, all these, like, list of different metrics that go into creating the score. So is that how you view it, as a long-term approach?
100%. Yeah. I mean, like, you know, if you actually want to do this, you know, if you actually want to bet on sports, you know, I mean, some people, you know, it's just like, you know, oh, you know, I'm going to toss, you know, X amount down 'cause it's a lock, and then they lose, and then that's it. But, you know, if you actually want to try to win money at sports betting, the only way to do it is long-term, because you have to grind out the wins. You know, I mean, even the best people in the world at sports betting, you know, the best season, what, 58, 59, yep, 60%. Exactly. I mean, that's the best guys in the world are going to get 40% of their picks wrong, even if they're having the heater season of their life. You know, so, I mean, for me, you know, I'm trying my lifetime percentage, I think right now is a little bit over 53%, which I'm quite proud of, because I had to pick against the closing number, not the opening number. And so, like, you know, for me, that's good. I'm trying to stay there, you know, or a little bit better. You're trying to stay above that. Is it 51.5? Is that the break even? Something like that with the VIG?
Yeah. We did a calculation on it. It's like, I got to fact check it, but it's like, I think it's like right under 52%, or right around 52%.
Okay. Yeah. I'd always heard 51.5, but no matter what it is, if you can hit above, 52 or above, you're doing okay. And outside of that, it just comes down to money management and not tossing your money away on things that you don't know very well. I've made money sports gambling, but again, it's not like I'm some sort of Svengali. It's over these years, it's 53 point whatever percent, and I'm just grinding out those winnings. But everyone that does it, you're going to lose a bunch of games because the point spreads, even in college, they're fairly sharp. Sports books are not giving money away. Mm-hmm. So, you got to do your homework, and you got to be in it for the long haul, and hopefully have a good process or follow people, whether your process is following people and you found people that are good to follow, however you do it. But it's got to be a long-term thing that involves good money management practices, or you got no shot. Most people don't win money in sports betting. I paid off my student loans doing it, which I'm proud of too, and it's the same thing. It's just grinding away the wins and money management.
Yep. Yeah. The best people in the world are sweating out half-point hooks just like everybody else. So that's exactly right. And something that we hit on as well is, to your point, is that those lines are set up so that ideally the sports book has 50% on either side of the line and guarantees that 10% return. Yep. And so if you can figure out where your value is, and yours, the information gap in college and getting to the line early, but if you can figure out a process where you can create value against the general public, over the long term, you can be successful doing this. You will
be successful.
Yeah, it's not a losing proposition that people think it is. It really isn't. And like outside of this and Weatherman, you just have to accept the fact that you're not going to be right a lot, and that's okay. That's okay. It's a long-term play, and not a lot of people get that. Something that you just hit on too, and starting the fantasy football thing. I think a lot of people play fantasy football but don't sports bet, and what they don't understand is that they're doing the same thing, which is exploiting matchups, right? And I think, do you see that there is cross-pollination in the skill set between being pretty good at fantasy football or fantasy whatever and sports gambling?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. It's not the exact same process, of course, but it's similar. You have a clearly delineated set of rules, and you're trying to exploit information advantages to win money. That's what it is.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so if you have a choice, all things being equal, I know you like the spread, but are you picking spreads or totals if you could choose?
For me, it's spreads. Totals might actually be easier. I'm not sure, but for some reason, I've just never been able to do totals. Even when I have a strong opinion about a total, which is fairly rarely, it just doesn't. I don't know. I just suck at it. So again, it's knowing not only your biases, but what you're good at and bad at. And I watch a lot of college football. Obviously, I cover it and have for a while now. And so I just have my process with the sides. And, I face a fairly tall order because, every week my column's coming out on a Thursday. I'm picking on spreads that I have to have accurate the second that we publish. So again, I'm picking against essentially what are closing numbers that have been, 5 days or whatever for the public and the sharps to form those numbers or whatever. And yeah, anyway, I just have a process for that, and that's what I'm comfortable with. But yeah, the totals, maybe someone needs to teach me. I've just never, I don't know. I just don't have a feel for it,
Yeah. I think it's a very different, skill set, spreads versus totals. And
I would agree.
The one thing I do think carries over, and I'm sure you see this a lot, is, seeing a line come out immediately and going, somebody in Vegas knows something that I don't, because that line is just wrong. And then throughout the week, you watch it get bet up and I knew it. So the example that immediately comes to mind is, and it's pro football, but the Browns-Ravens Monday night game opened at a pick, right? And at that moment, Baltimore could not have been going down further, and Cleveland could not have been ascending more the Browns are at home and it's an even line. And so like in our head, it's like, well, you almost have to take the Ravens, or at least look at it really hard, because there's something there. Like, that line just doesn't make sense. Is that kind of where you start that process of forming your 25 games or whatever it is?
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah. I mean, initially when I go through, because, when I'm setting up my numbers, it's all in spreadsheets, so I have all these spreadsheets, I'm like Charlie Day in Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Pepe Sylvia.
Exactly. But that's just me in my Google Sheets or whatever. So I got all that stuff. But like, one of the things that I do on Sundays is find the opening numbers, and I insert that into my, into my little spreadsheet or whatever. And yeah, I mean, it's not even something I'm trying to do. I just have opinions when it's, it's like, oh, that's interesting. One of them from the last week of the season, and the line never really moved, was that weird one where Air Force was a short favorite over Army.
Yep.
Army. And it,
Yep.
I have a notes column that comes out on Tuesday, and it gets the spread notes column. And then I have a pick one that comes out on Thursday. And I wrote on Tuesday, and from Sunday, it didn't make sense to me. And I thought about that line for 2 days, and I was trying to think of something more profound to say on Tuesday, and it still didn't make sense to me. I just threw my Army was a better team, and they were playing at home. So there's no injuries, there's no opt-outs. We saw Army more previously, and they absolutely dominated Navy. They shut them out, I believe, the weekend before. Air Force, Navy was the best team they'd beaten all season. The other two teams they'd beaten their backup quarterbacks, and they were terrible teams. It was New Mexico and one other just super crappy team. But anyway, the line just made absolutely no sense to me. I almost did not bet that game, even though I had a strong conviction, on Army. Just, they're a better team with a better defense. It's a better run defense in a triple option game at home. And I just saw them play against a triple option effing team. Like, what am I missing? So there's like examples of that where, at the end of the day, on Thursday, I just had to say, I don't get this line. Maybe someone in Vegas does know more than me. Maybe I am stepping in a trap, but at this point, I don't care, because I've looked into this. I can't figure out why this spread is the case. So maybe there's just people with money that disagree with me, and fair enough. Let's pony up. If I'm jumping into a trap, fair enough. There's other games though where it becomes apparent that this seems like a trap, and you again, like games like this, where your antenna goes up when you see the spread at first. It's just incumbent on you to research the game more, because I mentioned this to you earlier, but one of the first things I do, I'm looking for the discrepancies between my adjusted line and the Vegas line. And the first thing I'm trying to do with each one of these games, just as a sort of thought exercise, is explain it to myself. Some of them are very close. Some of them are within, half a point less, whatever. Those ones, it doesn't matter, because, the public and I in the books, we're seeing things the same way. It can just be, straight up handicap or whatever. But the other ones, some of them, it's just going to be like, oh yeah, they had the, Wisconsin, okay, Mertz is out this week with COVID, or, some of these other teams, okay, they got multiple guys out. But then sometimes, there's things that just don't make any sense. There's other times though, where, you can, maybe you should pick up on stuff. Like I remember I loved Boston College earlier this season against Virginia. And so I wrote that up. I thought they matched up really well. And the line, it did come down a little bit, but it didn't come down as much as I thought it was gonna. And then right before kickoff, it went from Virginia -4 or something like that, or 4.5, to Virginia -6.5, and it was announced that Jerkovich and David Bailey, the running back, were out for Boston College. So I knew I could burn that ticket. Sometimes this season, this is a special occasion, but sometimes some of the stuff simmering around, you have to dig for it or ask people questions. But sometimes you can explain, I'll give you another example. This is more topical. A couple of days ago, actually this might have been in the last 24 hours or 48 hours, something like that, 72 hours, something like that. But Indiana went from they'd been 6.5 point favorite over Ole Miss for, the past week or so, in that range, and it jumped up to 8. Well, a little bit before that hop, I had heard that Ely and Sanders, who had both been nicked up in the last game, I got a text that they were probably going to decide not to play in the Indiana game. And so, that line jumped up to 8, but like some people might not have, if you don't know stuff like that, you might not know stuff like that. Or we had the crazy shift on the Florida Oklahoma line where it shifted 6 points in less than 3 hours a couple of days ago. I was all over Oklahoma as is, so I didn't really need Grimes and Tony to opt out, but anyway, the line track and stuff is interesting either way.
I totally agree. I think there is master's education courses in line study coming in the next couple of years. I think it's so fascinating because it's part data science, but it's part psychology as well. It's a perfect intersection for a nerd like myself. I find it so interesting. And so we've talked about this a little bit, and you're a 5-star Sharp listed on our site. And we've talked about what we do and why that isn't just accuracy, but can you point to anything specifically that's made you consistently good? Is it, look, I know my lane, I know what I'm good at, and I stick to that. It's 5, 6, 7, 10 games a week, whatever the case might be, or is it something else? Anything else you can point to?
Yeah, I think it's probably just that going back to the information edge thing, because I just think it's so hard to keep a track of all these different teams. And so, my ability to be able to, handicap a game between Sunbelt teams or, stuff like that, it sort of broadens my horizon beyond, someone who might just watch, Big 12 football or Big 10 football. I think that's one of the things. I think the other thing is just, I love it. That's what goes into the grind part of it. Some people will call it like work or like, oh, whatever, but like, I just love it. Like on Sundays, I enjoy going into my spreadsheet, inputting all these different numbers, getting my new adjusted numbers. And then, one thing, we haven't talked about this with my lines, but one thing that differentiates my adjusted numbers from some other folks is I have adjusters during the week based on live betting signals that can adjust the line 4 points one way or the other based on betting data that's coming in. I wanted to have a spread that, you were just mentioning the value of reading the market and, of the data that you're getting, not only from the matchups or not only from your handicap, but actually from just reading the market. Like, for instance, what is the value of knowing that one team has 90% of the tickets bought on it, but the other team has 90% of the cash on it? Mm-hmm. Why is that super important? Well, that's one thing that would adjust my line a little bit, because that's indicative of the public is heavy on one side and the sharps are heavy on another side. Big time steam moves, big time line movements, different stuff like that. Because with my columns, it makes sense for us at NBC to post them late in the week. People don't want to, read that thing on Monday. And if it's it'd be stale if it's sitting there all week. They want the column out on Thursday for the weekend. That's what makes sense for the timing. So I have to pick against the closing number. And because of that, I wanted a line that sort of, baked in that live betting data that we were getting, the stuff from the market. So if the market was, was saying, oh, this team, is a team that sharps are looking at, and is a team that, the line is shot up, like whatever, my line is going to slightly reflect that. So, that's just something else.
Yeah, that's really interesting that 90% of the tickets versus 90% of the money. So often we see on social media or something, somebody posts something about, biggest bet of the day, $100,000 on Duke football or whatever it is to net, 110 or whatever it is, right? And we've always been interested to see and I don't know if they'll ever, they probably won't ever do this, but percentage of net worth, because $100,000 to someone is very different than $100,000 to someone else. We want to meet the guy who that's like 90% of his net worth. Like that's the guy we want to talk to. We want to get inside that guy's head.
That's funny. Whenever I hear those stories, I want that guy, I want a 5-minute video of his summation of his handicap is always what I think. Like, is this guy some doofus, you know, who's just whatever, or is it actually some sharp guy? So it's
funny. That's funny to think about. It's probably just some like oil salesman trying to impress a girl. Like, I bet on football.
I think there's for sure that. I mean, this is a little bit different, but I mean, we know that from before, like Charles Barkley and Michael Jordan had just massive gambling losses. Like, I mean, millionaires and competitive people, they like to gamble, and sports gambling is one of the funnest things that you could possibly do. There's a reason that people that make money are allowed to, and the sports books are making money. Obviously, they're making the most money out of anyone, but it's because there's people who are willing to lose money, which, thank you to them.
Yeah. So we've talked about this offline a little bit. In your process this year specifically, are you including a home field advantage? Because we've been trying to figure it out all year, if that 2.5 points or 3 points or whatever it is getting baked into the numbers Vegas is putting out, or if they're just saying now it's 1, or we're not even doing it at all.
Yeah, I remember we had a little bit of a dialogue about that on DM, didn't we?
Yeah.
I appreciated that, because I sent that question out because earlier this season I was at first it was just sort of a thought experiment, and then it was something that I actually started to struggle with, because in the first couple of weeks I was doing my full home field advantage, and so people do this differently, but in my system I have a custom home field advantage for every team that it has to do with multiple factors. That has to do with like the teams against the spread record at home over the last like decade or 15 years, capacity, percentage of capacity filled, a few different things like that. A lot of the numbers are sort of what you'd expect. And I think all of them are between 1 and 3.5. I don't believe there might be one team with a 4, but that's sort of where I keep them. But anyway, to answer your question, at the beginning of the season, first couple of weeks, I just had the regular home field, but then my system, it didn't seem to do so well the first couple of weeks. And obviously there was no fans in the stands. And so then you start thinking to yourself, well, why am I baking a full home field advantage in if there's no fans in the stands? And then it doesn't look like my system's doing the best on home teams. And so then that's when I started thinking about it. And so what I did at first, I think for just a week or two, I think I tried to do no home field. And I don't think that did any better. And so then I think I tried half a point, or I think I did half for a little bit. And then I think by the end of the season, I actually went back to a full 1. Now, this whole sort of wavering around and not knowing exactly what the answer is. I mean, it's a part indicative of just being in an unprecedented, year where you're in this global pandemic. And then the other thing is, it's just, this season was a really difficult handicapping year, there's a lot of different factors where home field is just one of them, but there's so many different things where in normal handicapping, you just would never, it's just like regular life, right? But like in handicapping, there was so many different facets that, had just never cropped up before in a regular handicap. The home field advantage was one. Obviously, the opt-outs were another thing, and sometimes we get those early in the week, and then sometimes we didn't get them till late in the week. And in my example before that BC Virginia game, they didn't announce their starting quarterback and running back was out until like a half an hour before the game. Mm-hmm. So, just a whole bunch of different stuff like that. It was just a super duper wonky year, but that's what I ended up doing with that. I'm not sure where you were at with that, but
we couldn't figure it out either one way or the other. But in your system, who is kind of that top dog? Are you willing to give up for?
Yeah, absolutely. If you give me a second, I can get into my I can find my home field page. Not many 4s. But UAB is one of them.
Whoa.
UAB and Oklahoma might be the only two.
Excellent.
Oh, Stanford as well, which that one is counterintuitive, but to the right of my sheet, I see that they had an 11-year against the spread cover rate at home of like, hold on, what was that? Of 62.5%. So they're not typically seen as like a team that like has a huge home field advantage because they're they don't have like a raucous crowd or whatever, but they've typically done pretty well at home. And also recently they were like 57.9 over the 3 previous years before I did this. So anyway, I think those are my 3 teams with 4. And then there's a small handful with 3 or 3.5. Like for instance, Alabama's a 3. And a part of that's just because their cover rate at home was just a shade under 50% over an 11-year span. And over the 3-year span, it was 43%, it looks like. So, that's one of the, it's not necessarily like, people talk about, oh, this is so intimidating to play here. Oh, this is tough. There are different factors and some of it just has to do with your hit rate,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think one of the things about Alabama that plays into that home field advantage that you're talking about is that when you go to face Alabama as an opposing team, it's not the crowd. It's the mental aspect of knowing that they are like, 50-1 at home over the past 10 years and forcing yourself out of like your game plan and like trying to do more than what you're schematically capable of doing. I liken it a lot to when Tom Brady was in New England. It wasn't like that crowd's fine, right? But it's more so like, oh my God, I'm playing Tom Brady in New England. I need to be better than my best, which is impossible. And that's where you start to see mistakes happen and things like that.
For sure.
So if you were to throw out one fun rule for gambling, we have in our office, and they all stem from like really bad beats, right? Like just a list of rules that some of them make sense, some of them don't. Like, for example, when RG3 was at Baylor and just lighting it up and he had this soft defense, we just started betting the over on Baylor. And we were pretty successful doing it. And then what we found was that every year there was a Baylor. And it went from Baylor to Mason Rudolph at Oklahoma State. And then you get Lamar at Louisville, and then this string of quarterbacks at Oklahoma with a soft defense. And so we just called it bet the Baylor over, and so, or a live mascot dying, bet that team, to bet that team to cover. So anything like that, anything fun that you'd want to toss out?
I would say my rule would be fade the public.
Yeah. Yes.
Very fade the solid. Public. You want to win money, you fade the public.
Very solid. Excellent. Let's get into what we like to call the lightning round. It's a very original name. We spent hours coming up with it. And these are one-word answers, just first thing that comes to mind. It's going to be kind of a grab bag of, actually kind of cool questions and then some funny stuff. So you ready to roll?
Let's do it.
All right. Favorite sports movie?
The Natural.
Least favorite head coach?
Can it be historical?
Yep, any coach.
Brad Childress. I hated that guy.
It's so funny though. I don't know why that guy is so unlikable, but he is.
Probably because of the way he looks and also the way he coaches. And also his personality.
Yeah.
Basically everything
match made in heaven. Yeah. Yeah, the way he dresses.
Yeah.
Personal best game day experience to date?
Oh God, man, I've had so many good ones. I think I would have to go with the Final Four in 2008 in San Antonio, because my team Kansas won. We beat Memphis. The first game we beat Roy Williams' UNC team, just beat the shit out of them. So that was awesome. Obviously Roy Williams had left Kansas, and then in the title game came back on on Memphis, one of the craziest games ever.
Yeah.
And Mario Chalmers hit the 3 at the buzzer to send it into overtime. And then at that point, Memphis was just gas. But that was the Derrick Rose team at Memphis. Some people will remember. So that was super fun. Not a football one, but that game was crazy to be at.
I still remember that shot. Like I'm not a Kansas basketball fan, but I remember coming across the top of the key around the 3-point line. I mean, I like it was yesterday for whatever reason.
When Chalmers hit that shot, I jumped up in the air and I actually landed on the chair in the row in front of me, which we were in the upper deck, like in the 3rd row. So it probably wasn't smart for me to be doing this, but like this huge hematoma on my like ankle, but I didn't even feel it. It was, and then we basically got kicked out by the cops of the river walk at like 3 a.m. because like Kansas fans were just like going nuts, like jumping in, like, just going absolutely wild. So yeah, that was definitely my best one. I'll give you a college football one though. If I can't say, I already said the Orange Bowl, so I won't say that one, even though that's probably tops. I'll go a non-KU one. My brother went to, you mentioned RG3. My brother went to Baylor when RG3 was there. My sister, for my birthday one year, got me tickets to Oklahoma Baylor. Whoa. And this is that season when Baylor shot up. It was that nationally televised game. I don't know if people will remember this, but the throw where RG3 threw it and the ball got deflected way up in the air, and Kendall Wright ran behind the defensive back and caught it, and it was like an 80-yard touchdown. And Baylor pulled this enormous upset. And after the game, we rushed the field, we all went down there, and I was with my sister. My brother was on the other side in the student section. He was drunk. We found him running around the field with his shirt off or whatever. But my sister, I told her like 2 minutes left. I told her, I said, get ready, because we're going to be running onto the field in a couple of minutes. And she's like, I'm not going on the field. And I said, okay, just wait there. I'll be back in 45 minutes or so. She was behind me so fast. So that was a super fun night. The night that Baylor upset Oklahoma, like right when Bryles, it's not a name you can really bring up right now, but the Bryles RG3 team, like right when that team started, just go crazy. That game was awesome in Waco.
That's cool. That's really cool. Okay. I know the answer to this, but can Les Miles make Kansas relevant?
No.
Moving on.
Moving on. Yeah. Absolutely. Categorically, no.
I think we've covered that in all sorts of depth.
Absolutely.
All right. True or false, Bill Self is a better X's and O's coach than Coach K?
True, for sure.
True or false, Bill Self whines less than Coach K?
True. Nobody whines more than Coach K. Are you going to ask me true or false? Does Coach K cheat more than Bill Self? That's a true. That's definitely a true.
I wasn't. I'm gonna let you have that. All right. College playoff 2022 prediction next year.
Oh, wow. I have not thought about this yet. That's really interesting. I mean, I think you probably just have to toss Alabama. I'd probably go Alabama, Georgia. I'm trying to think if I want to throw a Pac-12 team in there. Oregon could be knocking on the door next year. Mm-hmm. If it's going to be one, it's going to be Oregon. Ohio State's going to have to replace Fields. Okay, I'll say the two SEC teams. I'll toss in Oregon to get one outside the box, and you know what? Let's have fun. Let's say Miami. De'Aaron King's coming back into town. Like they're redoing the whole thing. Like Manny Diaz last year got a bunch of stud grad transfers. Yep. I'm sure he's going to be trying again. And this year, people haven't even started thinking about this, but I think we're going to have one of the wildest seasons of college football history. And I think next year we're going to have one of the best seasons in college football history, assuming, the antidote or whatever you call it with the booster shot, assuming that COVID's not a thing next year. But because of the stalled eligibility clock, you have all these extra seniors who now can transfer wherever they want. Well, some of them just didn't get, playing time, or some of them are out of you look at a team like Mississippi State, Mike Leach's team. That team had 22 new starters this year. They led the FBS. They have so many veterans that now can come back if they want. I mean, KJ Costello in a normal season, KJ Costello would be done now. He would be an undrafted free agent because his season was absolutely terrible. And, you know, it was so bad that this true freshman took over, this Will Rogers. Will Rogers has been noticeably better than Costello. If you took out Costello's first game, it's been just light years better, the true freshman has. But anyway, a guy like Costello, he can go back into the the transfer portal now because he can go back to school. You know, you're going to have so many guys. De'Ara King, of course, is an example like this. Sam Ehlinger is a guy that would have had to go. His eligibility would have exhausted. He's accepted his Senior Bowl invite, but he said that he might, you know, consider coming back and stuff. So, yeah, I just think we're going to have a crazy sort of year. And Diaz seems like a guy who's, you know, this past year we saw, you know, he signed like Quincy Roche and Jalen Phillips. And obviously he signed De'Ara King, you know, and guys like that. And I think he's going to be really active again in, you know, signing grad transfers. I assume that was part of the pitch to get De'Ara King back. So I got to go outside the box for one. Well, I guess I went outside the box maybe for two. So I'll do that.
All right. What is one franchise you most want to see win a championship in any sport?
The Vikings.
Brad Childress.
Definitely not Brad Childress. He's not allowed within 100 feet of the building. But like, yeah, I mean, you know, we've never won a Super Bowl, not only in my lifetime, but in my father's lifetime, my grandpa's lifetime. Like, we have a cursed franchise. In a lot of ways, it's a whole cursed sports landscape. That the Twins got a title in 91 and in 87, but it's basically been since then. Some would say, well, we got a couple Lynx titles. So I guess you got the Lynx, got a couple of them, but the Timberwolves are a terrible franchise. The Wilds are a terrible franchise. The Twins have been doing better, but they get swept by the Yankees every time they make the playoffs. So basically I need the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before I die. So it'd be them, and then the Hawkeyes winning a national title in football would be the other one, because I already saw my KU national basketball championship, and I went to Iowa for grad school. For those that don't know, so that's where I'm at with them.
That's where that comes from. Yeah. Got it. Coolest sports figure you've met to date?
It might be Denard Span was super cool. I covered the Twins in 2008. He was actually like a regular human being, which stood out. There was only like three of them. It was like him, Mike Lamb, who got released in the middle of the season, disappointing, and then Ben Revere, who was like his backup at the time. And there was a couple other okay guys, but like guys that were actually like, oh, you know, like I could talk to this guy at a bar. Like there's no sort of air of like, I'm a professional athlete and you're at the time, you know, 23-year-old reporter kid. So I would probably say him, because usually you have like the weird thing of like, you know, in public, it's, you know, it's usually like weird to have those interactions. And I just think like, Denard was just like a super duper nice guy. So for people that know that name, he was a super cool dude.
Greatest birthday party you had as a kid?
I would probably say, I was really obsessed with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And in fact, were you really?
Yeah, I used to yell down.
I was in the Turtle. Were you in the Turtle Club? Like where they sent you stuff in the mail?
No, I used to yell down sewers though.
Oh, so. Well, okay. You got that going for you. I still do that, but that's only after Kansas losses of more than 30 points. No, we'd have like, you know, like, you know, theme birthday parties. So I'd probably say that, you know, and then one year, like when I was a little bit older, you know, we all went down for like a Twins game. So that was super fun because my birthday's in late August. But I always liked the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff. So you know, as a kid, I think I would say my best one was, you know, some of that stuff. You get the ice cream cake from Dairy Queen with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on it. Happy birthday, Thor! Like, you're living a good life. You know, you got leftovers for like the next week, like after school snack. Your sister Quinn, she can't have any. Like, it's just great times, you know.
All right. Choose one head coach to build your college football program.
Oh, any
coach.
Any coach. Oh man, that's a really good question. I mean, you know, I mean, the obvious one is Nick Saban. But like going down lower, there's a future offensive coordinator that if I ran a football program that I'd really like to hire right now. So I'd probably hire a young offensive head coach with this guy, Brennan Marion, the wide receiver coach from Hawaii. He wrote the book on an offense called the Go-Go Offense. I think he's a brilliant guy, and he's just super young. He played, football at Tulsa, and then, now he's down at Graham's coaching staff. But if I was constructing, I mean, like, the idea of having a Nick Saban type or, like Urban Meyer, someone like that, you'd have to have an unlimited budget. But like actually like in a sort of realistic situation where like, I'm installed as like, the next like, AD of like, Georgia Southern. And the fan base is like, we don't want the triple option anymore. Like Thor, bring us the new offense, I might be sniffing around, coaches like Will Hall, or like, something like that. And then, I'd want an offensive coordinator like Marion. And then on defense, we'd find a Gary Patterson disciple and run a 4-2-5 with just shit tons of stunts and blitzes. And we'd give up explosive plays, of course, but we'd be coming after your ass all game long. And then we'd be running tempo on offense. Like recruits would love to play for me because it would just be on defense. It would be all havoc stats. And then on offense, it'd be the go-go offense. It'd be go, go,
go. Would the defensive coordinator have to sweat uncontrollably and wear a visor and scream at the top of his lungs constantly?
Well, I want more of like the like slick, good looking guy. Like, do you know the name Bob Diaco? Yeah. He used to be the head coach at UConn. And then the past couple of years, he was a coordinator for Nebraska. And then I think Purdue. He's gotten fired from his last, I believe, 3 jobs now, but he's just a very dapper, good looking man. And for my defensive coordinator, that's what I'd want. I think, because I think like me as the AD, I would probably be losing it enough for like, I'd let the head coach lose it. He can, Saban throw in the phone or whatever, like he can do that. And then I'm going to let people have it. I'm going to chew some ass for sure, on the sidelines, go down at halftime, get in the coach's ear. Like, what the hell was that? What kind of 2-minute drive was that? That was bullshit. That sort of a thing. So I think with my coordinators, we just want like, schematic guys who are also young and good looking, mostly for the boosters. Cause that's what they don't understand is like in my school, we're also going to be raising a bunch of money. So I'm going to be sending them out to the boosters. They're going to be bringing in money. And then with that cash, we're just going to be building up the facilities, bringing in the recruits. Definitely not giving illicit payments, NCAA. That's not what we would be doing in my hypothetical Georgia Southern. But we would be elevating the recruiting status and the excitement of the school. So I think that's what I would do.
Fair enough. Build the war chest.
Exactly.
True or false? The Wizard of Oz is the greatest Kansas franchise.
False.
Who eats more? Weiss, hot dogs, Miles, grass?
Oh, Did Weiss ever redo the stomach stapling operation?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I actually think that would inform my answer here. I don't believe, because I remember, and I don't mean to make light of it, but I remember that it was near fatal the first time he did it, and I don't believe they redid it.
Yeah.
So I think Charlie still can. He could still eat a good spread. I think I'm gonna go with Charlie on this one.
All right.
Yeah.
Last one. If you weren't creating content for Rotoworld, what would you be doing?
Oh man. If I wasn't writing about sports or something in that field. The only other thing I think I have any talent at in the world is arguing with people. And so when I was a kid, or in high school, they'd always tell me to go and be a lawyer. Say it for the courtroom, go be. So I probably, in a world where sports didn't exist, I probably just would have been forced into, sort of a path that involved like the debate team and then going to law school, et cetera. Just to take, I think so. I can't really think of anything else. I don't, my skills don't have much utility, to be honest. There's not many other things that I'm capable of doing. But it's the sickness, Yeah.
I hear you. I would love to see an infomercial for Thor personal injury attorney coming to you live, screaming at the camera.
Exactly. Well, I'd be a bulldog. I'd be a bulldog in the courtroom. Like, I get after the judge. I would get after him. Yeah. Like, and I've watched a lot of, John Grisham movies and such, and, certainly watched the entire catalog of Boston Legal, and so I don't know. I think I could do okay.
There it is.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Well, hey, toss out your Twitter handles, toss out any place people can find your stuff so they can get in front of you.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Thorku. That's THORKU, my alma mater. I made that handle like right when I got out of undergrad, and at this point I just can't change it. And then come and check out my work on Rotoworld. We're doing a bowl preview series, so I'm previewing every bowl game. Hopefully we'll do better down the stretch here. It's been a tough start to the bowl season, but hopefully we do better. I do document my record. I'm not hiding from anything. So I gotta have a strong finish to the season. I've never finished under 500, and right now I think I'm 2 games under. So I gotta have a strong finish to the season. But come and check me out. That series, and then we put out videos, capping the games as well. My colleague Eric Froton has an awesome prop column that during the season he hit like 70% documented on props. Now, I was talking before about that's on sides. If people actually want to make money, the way to make money is in college football props. Just don't tell the books about this yet because they'll stop offering them. But you can find some really, really soft numbers there. And so Eric's our guy for, going through all the different prop numbers in these college football games during the season. But now during the bowl games, he's also putting them out. And you can make money there. Those lines are really soft. So, check out his stuff as well. And that's about it.
Awesome, man. Well, that's that. And that's all we have to say about that. Like Forrest Gump says. So thank you so much for spending some time with us, man. We really appreciate it. I know our subscribers are going to love it. So really, really appreciate it. And we'll keep in touch as we go along here.
You got it, brother. Good to be with you.
Leave a comment below if you have any questions that you'd like to hear us ask some of the best sharps in the business in future interviews. And if you like irreverent commentary, be sure to sign up on SharpRank.com for our newsletter that will show up in your inbox on Tuesday mornings. Also be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and if you're feeling professional, LinkedIn. We'll see you around.